And
the great escape. Just wanted to give you back the yoga mat.
Just got your yoga mat.
They're like, in case you're going to do Ashtanga later.
Long story short, we ended up meeting the warden of the prison. He was a very nice guy and loved film, and
Good.
and it worked out all right. So
We had milk and cookies with him and got off the hook.
yeah.
And ate all his cookies because we were hungry.
I understand that you guys shot the scenes with you and William largely in sequence.
Yes.
Did that kind of help in terms of developing the characters a little bit together?
Oh, totally. And from an acting perspective, it was such a gift. And that's one of the amazing things about Mike as a director. He's incredibly sensitive to performance. And a lot of times it's not that way. I mean, there's so many concerns in making a movie, most of them budgetary, that dictate how it's going to be made. And it's never happens chronologically. And Mike was really adamant that he wanted this movie to feel real because the premise is so fantastical, and he wanted the performances to feel real, and he wanted this relationship to feel real, and so he built everything around being able to shoot those scenes in sequence between William and I, which was a tremendous gift as an actor. And you get so lucky when your director protects you like that, because he's letting you try to do your job to the best of the ability, and most people aren't necessarily that sensitive, so we were really lucky for that. Because there are things that happened that, like the we scene, turned out to be much more touching. And at first when we wrote it, we were like, this is boxing, and they've got this history between them that they know or don't know, and they're beating each other up, and isn't this aggressive and interesting? And when we played the scene, it was like, William was really, John was really sweet about it. He was like really trying to teach me to box, and there's this like really tender moment, and that informed all the scenes that followed. And so
Was there an actual thing on screen?
No.
That's what I thought. Couldn't afford that either.
We couldn't. We really didn't. All we could afford was control.
I think it was Nick. Nick was like, I have Wii boxing, and I think he forgot it. And we're like, all right.
Somebody ran to like the nearest store and just bought the controls. So they were just like wires that went off screen, and we're just like playing.
And after like flash device on them, the TV screen was working.
That was really awesome, actually.
Going back to the premise, when you decided you wanted to write, you were going to act, you were going to direct. So what came after that? Was it this premise otherworldly, or was it the character that you wanted to?
It was the premise. It was the premise that came first. We were interested in, from an emotional standpoint, what it would be like to meet yourself, and something about the confrontation of the self, or the witness, like bearing witness to another version of yourself, fulfills this weird, like, primal desire that we have to connect, I think. Or at least that's what we were feeling. We were meditating on that, which is, we're very much alone in life. We're born alone. We go through life through looking out our two eyes in a singular perspective. No matter how many people we're close to in life, we are very much experiencing it alone. Our secrets, our secret fears, our desires, and all these things that we have that we thought, well, if you could see another version of yourself, that person you could connect with in such a deep way, they would have the greatest amount of empathy for who you are and the choices that you make, even if they've gone on a different pathway. And so we came up with that larger idea about the duplicate Earth and all 6.3 billion of us also having a doppelganger. And then we said, well, who needs to meet themselves the most? And we came up with the story of someone who needed forgiveness and needed to forgive themselves, and who was seeking redemption. And so there was a big concept, then it was the character. And then from there, the story unfolded very organically as we wrote. We wrote in sequence, always asking what's going to happen next, what's going to happen next. And as we were getting towards the ending, we were like, all right, how are we going to end this movie? Where is it going? Like, it's like as if it was this animal that we're talking to. Like, where are you going? Where do you want to go? And there were so many different possibilities. He could have come back, or she could have gone. There's all these different ways it could have unfolded. And then when we came to this conclusion, we were thrilled. It was like as if the Rubik's Cube clicked into place. And we held on to it, and we're like, now we have a movie. And then that was about 4 months of just this brainstorming and talking character profiles and writing. And then after that, when we had that moment, it was 2 months. We just burned through final draft, and we had our script.
So you didn't have a final moment. You didn't have an alternate cut where he goes onto the spaceship and looks up. Close Encounter, I'm sorry.
There was a version actually where he did get on the spaceship.
There was a version where he was on the spaceship and he was floating.
He was weightless. And we got to see him weightless finally.
Yeah, but then for a couple of reasons, the movie's very much in Rhoda's POV, and that would have broken the POV, which I wanted to be very strict about because of the isolation and the singularity of her story and the confrontation and stuff. I didn't want to jump around POV, so there's no scenes where he's like doing something and we're not. With her, she's almost in every single frame. So we axed it, and it's been very expensive to try and figure out how to make William float.
It's cool that you guys did it through your point of view, but the narration seemed so much more otherworldly, and I mean that's a Texas connection too, kind of weirdly. Richard Burns, yeah.
Oh way.
And how did you write that before, or was that something you just kind of let him come up with crazy stuff that he was saying?
It was done. It was interesting. It was a very organic process. We didn't write his lines, so Dr. Branson, I was a huge fan of his, and I listened to his audio books about the cosmos, and we would listen to it as we were writing the story. And I sought him out. I didn't know him, or I didn't know anyone who knew him, and I just sort of cold called him, or like cold emailed him, saying, we're writing this project about another Earth, blah, 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 like, you're amazing. Would you be able to sit down and have lunch, just talk about it? And he did, very graciously, and he understood that we were using science for metaphor, and he said, I'll help in any way. And so he became this narrator, and we didn't want to write his lines because he's so eloquent and speaks so beautifully of the cosmos, and the way he talks about space is with an emotional narrative that allows the layperson access to these complex ideas. And so literally that aspect was sort of documentary. We went and visited him 4 times and just would interview him, guiding him along where we're going with the story. But we recorded 8-10 hours worth of just conversations, and I was just geeking out asking him questions that I was curious about the cosmos, because it was like having your own private, like, brilliant teacher. And then picked and choose the elements that seemed to reflect the interior world of Rhoda philosophically, and put those as narration through the film, and then he delivers the broken mirror theory on the television at the end, which is really amazing.
Speak a little bit about the character of Purdeep, the janitor. What's the significance of his character in the film?
Purdeep, that's another Texas connection. That's Kumar Palana, who we met at the San Francisco Film Festival. He was at our party when we had this movie called Boxing Ballerinas, and I wanted to